Hi, Kevin Coupe here, and this is FaceTime with the Content Guy. So, just for the record, I want you to know that when I ran my first marathon, the Marine Corps Marathon, in Washington, D.C. in October of 2001, beginning and ending in the shadow of the Pentagon, which had just been attacked, I ran that first marathon in 5 hours, 35 minutes, 29 seconds. My second and almost certainly my last Marine Corps Marathon took place in 2004, just days before I turned 50. I ran that marathon in almost the same time. I ran it in 5 hours, 29 minutes, 3 seconds. A little bit of an improvement. Now, those days are let me tell you, I remember those days vividly. I remember everything about them. I remember what the weather was like. One was hot, one was cold. I remember that I did the second one, the first half of it, far more strongly than I did the second half. The second half was a disaster. I remember the first half. I remember the first one I ran. I remember the food cravings I had as I went along. I remember everything about those days. And the thing is, it's that running a marathon is I think a major accomplishment. I always thought it was one of the most one of the more accomplished things I've done with my life. Now, I never ever would have thought of misstating my times, ever. I mean, 5 hours, 5.5 hours. If you'd come to me 2 weeks ago and asked me, I would have said, 5.5 hours, roughly a minute here, a minute there. But I would have had it pretty correct. And most of the runners that I know who have done marathons, those times are really cemented in their minds. Now, I mention this because it has become something of an issue recently, because Paul Ryan, the GOP vice presidential candidate, basically misstated his marathon time by over an hour. Okay, he got it wrong by over an hour. He said he did it in under 3. Ended up he did a little over 4. And people found out about this really quickly. Now, I mention this not because I want to make a political point. I absolutely do not want to make a political thing out of this. I do, however, want to draw a business lesson from this. And not surprisingly, to those of you who are familiar with where I come from on these issues, it is a statement about transparency and accuracy. Okay? We live in a world where if you say you did it in under 3 hours and you did it in over 4 hours, people are going to be able to find out. I didn't remember exactly what my time was, but when this story came up and I was thinking about doing this commentary, I was able to find out my precise times. It took me about 45 seconds. Okay? So we live in a world where you simply cannot be inaccurate. You have to be transparent about everything. You have to be transparent about the things that are on your labels. You have to be transparent about whether or not you're organic. You have to be transparent about what the environmental impact is of the products that you sell. You have to be accurate and transparent about everything. Because if you're not, people are going to find out. And it erodes trust. You just can't help it. Now, I'm not picking on Paul Ryan here, but he's a serious guy with serious opinions. He has serious beliefs in the things that he believes will save this country. And I think even if you disagree with him, we can all agree on that. But the problem is by misstating his times, he's created at least a question in the minds of some people about whether or not he can be entirely trusted. Now, I take him at his word. I just think he forgot. Okay? Or he got used to maybe over a period of time. Yeah, we went from 4 hours to 3:45 to 3.5 to 3, and eventually he got under 3, and he just kind of got used to saying it that way, and he got caught. Okay? And the thing is, I don't think it's going to make a big difference in the presidential election. I really don't. I mean, I don't think vice presidents matter that much anyway. I don't think the 45% of the country that was going to vote for Romney, Ryan, anyway is going to have their opinion changed by this. I don't think that the 45% of the population that's going to vote Democrat in the next election, I don't think their opinions are going to be changed by this. I don't really think it will or even should have an impact on the other 10% that's got to make their mind. God, I hope they don't make their minds up on this. I just think it's interesting because it teaches us a lesson that, you got to get things right. The big things and the small things. And if we don't get things right and we get called out on it, we can lose some credibility. We can lose a reputation for being honest. And that can hurt business in the long run. Now, I want to be completely honest here, that I have not always been completely honest about one facet of my physical being, if you shall say. I got to tell you, for a long time, I sort of lied about my height. I didn't really do it on purpose. I've always been, as an adult, 5'8" and a half. I kind of rounded it up to 5'9". And after a period of time, I sort of forgot. I thought it was 5'9" and a half, so I rounded it up to 5'10". And then I sort of forgot and thought I was 5'10" and a half, and once I rounded it up to 5'11". Well, Mrs. Content Guy heard it, and she just looked at me and she said, "Cut the crap. What are you talking about? You're not 5'11". You're 5'8" and a half, and you're always going to be 5'8" and a half until you get so old you start to shrink." Now, again, I didn't lie on purpose. I just sort of forgot. I got used to telling it one way, and eventually it caught up with me. It's why I love Mrs. Content Guy. And quite frankly, it's why every person and every organization needs someone like her that's going to make sure that we're being transparent and accurate in every facet of what we do. Anyway, that's what's on my mind this Thursday morning. It's good to be back from vacation, and as always, I want to hear what's on your mind.